Tonight we're going to learn about the Haftarah from Parashat Terumah. The parasha, the Torah reading, talks about the construction of the tabernacle, the Mishkan, where God was dwelling for 40 years while the Jewish people, the Israelites, wandered through the Sinai desert prior to getting to the land of Israel, and then for approximately another 440 years while in the land of Israel, Shiloh and other places. Now we have to find a Haftarah to read that has a theme similar to the parasha. So the men of the Great Assembly picked this wonderful Haftorah, this wonderful selection from the book of the prophets, book Kings, Melachim. And what a king they picked, King Solomon. Now, let's get to know King Solomon a little bit. First of all, Shalomo. What do you hear in his name? Shalom, peace, or prosperity. He lived in a time where the nation of Israel was its pinnacle of prosperity. He had 7 names. One of them is Kohelet. You know that he wrote the book Kohelet. Also, Shlomo, Agur, Yakeh, Lemuel, and Itiel. Remember, his father was David HaMelech, and Shlomo, while David was alive, was made king at the age of 12, and he ruled for 40 years in the land of Israel as a united monarchy. Now, he passed away at the age of 52, and he started having the Bet HaMikdash be built from the time he was 16, and that took 7 years to complete building the Bet HaMikdash. He was an extremely wealthy man. By some estimations I've calculated, and this was an old number, that his wealth increased by $250 million a year, and that he had many horses and horsemen, and of course the fabled 700 wives, and if that wasn't enough, he had 300 concubines. Not to get off the track, but it was more political liaisons. One of his wives was Pharaoh's daughter, from Egypt. We all know that he was the smartest man who ever lived. He was able to give 3,000 explanations to every pasuk in the Torah. He knew all 70 spoken languages of man. He even was the Dr. Dolittle of his time. He was able to speak to animals. The shamir was this termite-like worm. It was able to eat through stone. They did not use metal instruments on the stones to build the Bet HaMikdash. He was so wise. The Queen of Sheba traveled 7 years to meet this man in person. And she comes to the throne of King Solomon, and she has a dozen plus riddles. Toughest in the world. And she asks them one after the other, and he answers them. And in a very impressed response, she looks at King Solomon and she says, "You are far wiser than your reputation." So this man had incredible intelligence. It wasn't just human intelligence. It went beyond that. It was divine inspiration. It was godly wisdom. He founded 3 cities in Israel, Megiddo, which is an archaeological place, and the word Armageddon comes from this northern fortress city in the land of Israel. Chatzor, another archaeological site, biblical archaeology, and Gezer, all 3 in the north of Israel. 2 of the mitzvot are given credit to Shlomo HaMelech. He made the mitzvah of Eruv and Netilat Yadayim, the washing of the hands, and he also gets credit for the 3rd blessing in the grace after meals, the Bekat HaMazon, Bonei Yerushalayim. The Eruv is a string surrounding the outer perimeter of an area, designating it permissible for Jewish people to walk from private property to public property on Shabbat. I mentioned before, one of the books that he wrote was Kohelet, or Ecclesiastes. He also wrote Mishlei, Mashal, Proverbs, which concludes with the song that we sing on Friday night, Eshet Chayil, the wonderful song that we sing to all the extraordinary women in our lives, our wives especially. And he wrote Shir HaShirim, or the Song of Songs. Every Shabbat, when we put away the Torah in the ark, we sing Etz Chaim Hi Lama Chazikim Ba. The tree, this Torah, is for the people who hold on it. The Haftarah is actually an interesting one. It is the discussion about the building of the Bet HaMikdash. And it starts off by saying that Hashem gave wisdom to Shlomo before the Haftarah in the text. Shlomo Melech says to God, prays to God, please give me the wisdom to judge these people correctly. And God gives him this divine wisdom. And then it talks about how he created a workforce and that he had 30,000 men that were of working age. And for 30 days he would send 10,000 up to Tyre in Lebanon, and they would work, and then they would go on furlough, they would go on relief for 60 days, and they would cycle through 10,000 a month, these men, and this went on for 7 years. On top of that, up north, by the quarries, there were 70,000 men working, along with another 80,000 men. So cumulatively, between the rock choppers and the rock movers, there was 150,000 men, and the management team of the time was 3,300 men that were looking after these 150,000 laborers that were helping Solomon build the Bet HaMikdash. Then it goes into talking about how big the Bet HaMikdash was. So it says that it was 60 cubits long from the front door. You would walk in and continue to where the Kadosh area was, the holy area, and then beyond that the Kadosh HaKdashim. That was 60 cubits, or about 90 feet. A cubit was measured by taking a string from here and wrapping it around till here. And they would wrap it and wrap it and wrap it, and they would see how many cubits something was on a long piece of rope. That is one opinion of the cubit, why it was approximately 18 inches from someone's palm, wrapping it around their elbow. So they would do like you wrap an extension cord up, so they would see. Each one would be 2 times around, 18 plus 18, 36 inches. They would know 3 feet. 4 times, 6 times, however many times it was. They would quickly calculate how long a distance was. Then the Bet HaMikdash was 20 cubits wide, and at its peak it was 30 cubits high, about 48 feet, 50 feet high, about 5 stories high. So to look up at it, it was absolutely beautiful. Then, once the Bet HaMikdash was finished, King Solomon paneled the Bet HaMikdash, the inner walls, with cedar boards and plank. And then the Haftarah continues, actually concludes, with King Solomon being spoken to by Hashem, by God, saying, Shlomo, listen to me carefully. As long as you keep the laws of the Torah, and as long as you lead the nation in a holy way, like you were promised, I promised your father David HaMelech, I'm promising to you that I will stay with Am Yisrael, with the nation of Israel, and I will never abandon you. You will be able to live in the city of Jerusalem forever and ever. We know that this Haftarah happened about, let's just say, 2,800 years ago, and it takes place in the city of Jerusalem. What's important to remember is, what lesson do we learn? And just like you have the Mishkan being built, and Am Yisrael would come there, the nation of Israel would come there, so too you have the Bet HaMikdash, the holy temple being built. But today we don't have this holy temple to go to. But we have synagogues, temples, shtibels, places of prayer. And that each and every one of us should make our best effort to go to synagogue. Why? What's in the word? Sin-agog. Synonym, at one with, Gog, God. And that we should go together as a group and pray as a united nation to God